The small-town doctor's office smells of antiseptic and tobacco. It's 1955 and Dr. Thompson, with his starched white coat, leans back in his chair, a cigarette glowing between his fingers. The radio hums with Elvis Presley's latest hit, and a young patient, maybe your dad or granddad, sits on the exam table, coughing lightly. Dr. Thompson smiles, stubs out his smoke, and says, "Try Camels, son. They're mild, good for the throat." It's not a joke, it's advice as normal as prescribing aspirin. Back then, doctors weren't just healers, they were gods in white. Americans trusted them completely, fresh off the triumph of polio vaccines and penicillin. Cigarettes? They were everywhere, on billboards, in movies, even in hospitals. Some doctors believed smoking eased stress or helped digestion, ideas rooted in old medical journals and tobacco ads. Philip Morris ran studies claiming their brand soothed throats. R.J. Reynolds boasted more doctors smoke Camels. And many doctors did smoke right in their offices, the haze blending with the optimism of a booming America. This wasn't just medical advice, it was cultural gospel. Smoking was as American as apple pie, woven into coffee breaks and first dates. A cigarette in hand made you look sharp, like Marlon Brando in a leather jacket. It was the 1950s, a time of shiny Chevys and suburban dreams when no one questioned the men in charge, especially not the ones with stethoscopes. But that trust had a shadow. By the late 1950s, whispers of lung cancer risks were growing louder, though tobacco companies fought back with slick ads and fake science. The truth was coming, but for now, Dr. Thompson's cigarette glowed like a beacon of authority. That era shaped how we saw doctors, how we chased health, even how we flirted over a shared smoke. It's a warm memory for some, those simpler days, but it carries a quiet warning. Blind faith in anyone, even a doctor, can lead us down a smoky path. What we believe today about health, about experts, owes something to those hazy offices where trust and tobacco burned bright together. The jukebox in Rosie's diner glows neon red, spinning a Buddy Holly tune that crackles through the air. It's 1957 and the place is alive. Waitresses in pink aprons weave through booths and cigarette smoke curls like a lazy dance. A young couple shares a milkshake, each with a cigarette burning, the tips glowing as they laugh. Smoking isn't just a habit, it's the heartbeat of the room, as American as the chrome-trimmed Chevy parked outside. In the 1950s, tobacco was king. After World War II, cigarettes were everywhere. Movie stars like Humphrey Bogart lit up on screen, their smoky exhales looking cool, untouchable. Tobacco companies sold 400 billion cigarettes a year, and no one blinked. They were in every corner store, vending machine, even your uncle's coat pocket. The war had made smoking a ritual. Soldiers got free packs and rations, and that habit came home, settling into diners, offices, and living rooms. Cigarettes shaped how people connected. Offering a light was a pickup line, a way to spark a romance over coffee or a slow dance. At work, smoke breaks built friendships, the haze softening the grind of new factories. Even TV shows had hosts puffing away, like Edward R. Murrow, his cigarette trailing smoke as he delivered the news. It was glamorous, grown-up, a symbol of a nation striding forward, building suburbs and dreaming big. But that golden haze hit a cost. By the mid-1950s, some scientists were linking smoking to cancer, though their voices were drowned out by tobacco's roar. The industry pushed harder, sponsoring baseball games and radio shows, making sure every teenager wanted to be the guy with a pack rolled in his sleeve. Those smoky diners, those jukebox nights, they're a warm memory for anyone who lived it, the laughter, the music, the feeling of being young in a booming America. But they left a mark. Smoking wove itself into how we socialized, how we loved, how we saw ourselves. It's a reminder that what feels normal, even beautiful, can carry a shadow. The things we embrace as ours might not always be as golden as they seem. A black and white TV flickers in a 1956 living room, kids sprawled on the rug, watching a Camel ad. A doctor in a crisp white coat smiles, cigarette in hand, saying, "More doctors smoke Camels than any other brand." The words feel like gospel, as comforting as a Perry Como song drifting from the radio. To a family sipping root beer, it's not just an ad, it's truth wrapped in science and style. Tobacco companies were masters of the game. In the 1950s, they didn't just sell cigarettes, they sold trust. They hired men who knew how to tug at America's heart. Doctors were the perfect prop, symbols of wisdom in a nation that revered expertise after wartime breakthroughs. Ads in Life magazine showed physicians recommending brands like Lucky Strike for less throat irritation. One even claimed smoking aided digestion. It wasn't all lies. Some doctors, swayed by flimsy studies or free samples, backed these claims, their faces plastered on billboards. These campaigns shaped more than habits, they defined cool. A cigarette dangled from James Dean's lips and rebel without a cause, echoing ads that promised sophistication. Men wanted that rugged charm, women craved the elegance of a slim Virginia Slims. The ads set the tone for 1950s fashion, sleek suits, red lipstick, and a pack in every pocket. Even music felt the vibe, with smoky jazz clubs where every note seemed to curl through the haze. But the truth was murkier. Tobacco companies buried early cancer studies, funding their own research to muddy the waters. They knew the power of a white coat, and they used it to keep America lighting up long after doubts crept in. Those ads are a time capsule now, a snapshot of an era when trust came easy and style was king. For anyone who flipped through those magazines or mimicked a movie star's pose, they spark nostalgia for a bolder, brighter America. But they also whisper a caution. The slickest ads, the most trusted voices, can sell a lie if we're not looking closely. That lesson lingers in every choice we make about what to believe. A lab in St. Louis hums with the clatter of typewriters and the faint smell of cigarette smoke. It's 1953 and Dr. Ernst Winder, a young researcher, stares at microscope slides, his brow furrowed. He's just published a study linking smoking to lung cancer, and the data is stark. Mice painted with tobacco tar are dying. But outside his lab, the world keeps puffing away, diners and drive-ins glowing with neon and nicotine. His findings feel like a shout into the wind. In the early 1950s, science was stirring. Most doctors still saw cigarettes as harmless, some even prescribing them for nerves or weight loss. But cracks were forming. Winder's work, alongside studies from Britain, showed smokers had higher cancer rates. Reader's Digest ran a piece called Cancer by the Carton, and it hit like a thunderclap, read in living rooms across America. For the first time, regular folks, like your grandma knitting by the radio, started to wonder about the pack in their purse. This was the 1950s, a time of boundless faith and progress. Americans cheered moonbound rockets and TV dinners, believing science could solve anything. Yet that same optimism made it hard to accept cigarettes, a daily comfort, could kill. Tobacco companies pounced, funding fake studies and calling cancer claims unproven. They kept doctors on payrolls, drowning doubt in a haze of ads. That clash shaped the era's spirit, hope wrestling with skepticism. Families gathered around walnut cabinet TVs, hearing both miracle drug ads and faint warnings about smoking. It was the start of questioning, a shift that would echo in the protest songs and civil rights marches to come. For those who lived it, the 1950s spark memories of a simpler time when science felt like magic. But Dr. Winder's slides tell a harder truth. Progress moves slow when money and habits dig in. Today, we look back and see how those early studies changed everything: health warnings, smoke-free bars, longer lives. The lesson? Truth fights to be heard, but it needs us to listen. The VFW hall is quiet tonight, 1958, the jukebox off, a few old-timers nursing beers. Frank, a World War II vet with a faded tattoo, pulls a Lucky Strike from his pack, lighting it with a Zippo that saw Normandy. The flame catches and he exhales, the smoke carrying memories of muddy trenches and free cigarettes tucked into his rations. Back then, smoking wasn't a choice, it was survival, a way to steady shaking hands. During the war, tobacco was a soldier's best friend. The government shipped billions of cigarettes to troops, brands like Chesterfield and Camel stuffed in every kit. By 1945, nearly half of American men smoked, many hooked in foxholes. When they came home, the habit stuck, as natural as saluting the flag. In the 1950s, Frank's generation carried that ritual into factories, bars, and backyard barbecues, a cigarette always burning. Smoking was more than a habit, it was manhood. Ads showed rugged GIs, faces weathered, cigarettes glowing like badges of grit. In a post-war world of crew cuts and conformity, lighting up was how men proved they were tough, stoic, like John Wayne squinting through the smoke. It shaped how they talked, shoulders squared over poker games, or how they courted, offering a light to a girl at a dance. But those wartime packs came with a price. By the late 1950s, veterans like Frank were coughing more, some wasting away in VA hospitals, though few connected it to smoking. The tobacco industry leaned into the GI image, sponsoring veterans' events, keeping the myth alive. For anyone who grew up around men like Frank, the smell of tobacco might spark memories of Sunday drives or fishing trips, a time when heroes seemed unbreakable. But those cigarettes, handed out like candy in war, tethered a generation to a habit that haunted them. It's a reminder that what gets us through hard times, war, loss, fear, can leave scars we don't see right away. Sometimes strength means letting go. The kitchen clock ticks softly, 1959, as Betty, a young housewife in a polka-dot apron, flips through a Vogue magazine. An ad catches her eye, a sleek woman in a silk dress, cigarette poised like a wand, promising, "You've come a long way, baby." Betty lights a Virginia Slims, the smoke swirling as she dreams of something bigger than laundry and casseroles. In that moment, a cigarette feels like freedom. In the 1950s, tobacco companies saw women as their next frontier. Smoking had long been a man's game, but post-war shifts, women voting, working, claiming space, changed the script. Ads painted cigarettes as a spark of independence, a way to be glamorous like Audrey Hepburn or bold like a Rosie the Riveter who never quit. Brands like Marlboro offered ladylike filters while others claimed smoking kept you slim, a nod to the era's obsession with trim waists. Cigarettes became a style statement. Women paired them with cat-eye glasses and red lipstick, the act of lighting up as deliberate as pinning a hat. At bridge clubs or PTA meetings, a cigarette case was as chic as a new handbag. It wasn't just fashion, it was defiance, a quiet rebellion against the perfect wife ideal. Smoking let women claim a corner of the world, even if just for a puff. But the glamour had a catch. Tobacco companies hid the risks even as cancer rates climbed. Women, targeted with pink packs and promises, were pulled into a trap dressed up as liberation. By the 1960s, smoking among women soared, a trend that would linger in hospital wards. For those who remember the 1950s, the image of a woman with a cigarette might recall a mother's elegance or an aunt's sharp wit, moments steeped in the scent of smoke and Chanel. But that freedom came at a cost, one we see clearer now. It's a lesson woven into the fabric of those years. What looks like progress can sometimes be a pretty cage. True freedom doesn't leave you breathless. The radio crackles in a 1964 suburban kitchen, cutting through the clink of breakfast dishes. A newsman's voice, grave as a preacher, announces the Surgeon General's report. Smoking causes lung cancer. Your mom, wiping her hands on a dish towel, pauses, her pack of Pall Malls on the counter. The kids at the table, munching cereal, don't yet know this moment will change everything. But it does. The report, released on January 11, 1964, was a bombshell. Dr. Luther Terry, the Surgeon General, laid out hard evidence. Smoking wasn't just risky. It was deadly. Years of studies, from mouse labs to hospital wards, piled up undeniable proof. Cigarettes, once prescribed by doctors, were now a public health enemy. The news hit living rooms like a shockwave, shaking the trust of a nation that still saw smoking as apple pie normal. In the 1950s, cigarettes were family life. Parents lit up at dinner, offered packs to guests like dessert. But 1964 cracked that world open. Families started arguing over ashtrays. Your dad might have scoffed, saying, "I've smoked for years and I'm fine." Your mom, though, maybe hid her pack, worried for the kids. It wasn't just health. It was trust. If doctors once said cigarettes were safe, what else were they wrong about? The report reshaped America's rhythm. Warning labels appeared on packs, a nagging reminder at every corner store. TV ads for cigarettes, once as common as soap commercials, faced bans by 1971. It was the dawn of questioning authority, a thread that wove into Vietnam protests and Woodstock's rebel yell. For those who lived through it, 1964 might stir memories of AM radios and Formica tables, a time when the world felt steady until it wasn't. That report didn't just save lives, it taught us to doubt, to demand proof. Today, we breathe easier because of it, in smoke-free cafes and longer lives. But it reminds us, change starts when we face hard truths, even when they sting. A 1970s high school parking lot hums with energy, radios blaring Led Zeppelin. Tommy, 16, leans against his beat-up Mustang, a stolen Marlboro between his lips, mimicking James Dean's squint. His leather jacket's too big, but the cigarette? That's his ticket to cool, a middle finger to the teachers and parents who don't get it. Smoking's not just a habit, it's rebellion, loud as a guitar riff. By the 1970s, cigarettes were the badge of youth culture. The Surgeon General's warning had landed, but for kids like Tommy, it only made smoking edgier. The 1950s had made cigarettes normal, the 1960s made them dangerous, and danger was the point. Teens saw it in movies, Marlon Brando's sneer, Easy Rider's open-road swagger. Rock and roll fed the vibe, with smoky clubs where bands like the Rolling Stones played to crowds exhaling defiance. Cigarettes were as much a prop as long hair or tie-dye, a way to say you weren't your dad in a gray flannel suit. Smoking shaped how kids connected. Sharing a pack was a pact, a secret handshake outside the principal's office. It was how you flirted passing a lighter to a girl in bell-bottoms or stood out at a concert, smoke curling under strobe lights. But the thrill had a shadow. Cancer stats were climbing, and some kids, like Tommy's cousin, were already coughing too much. That rebel spirit defined the era's pulse: music, fashion, protests. It was Woodstock and Vietnam marches, a generation refusing to sit still. But it came from the 1950s, when cigarettes were handed out like candy, no questions asked. For those who lived it, the smell of tobacco might spark memories of first loves or midnight drives, a time when rules were for breaking. Yet it's a reminder: rebellion feels free, but it can blind us to what we're really risking. A neon sign buzzes outside a 1990s dive bar. But inside, something's new. No smoke hangs in the air. It's 1998, and a fresh no smoking sign is nailed above the jukebox, where Nirvana's grunge still wails. Patrons grumble, sipping beers without their usual cigarette. The bartender, wiping down the counter, shrugs. It's the law now. The haze of the 1950s, once thick as fog, is fading fast. By the 1990s, America was done romanticizing tobacco. The 1964 Surgeon General's report had sparked a slow burn of change, but it was the decades after laws, lawsuits, and loud campaigns that doused the flame. States like California banned smoking in bars and restaurants, a move once unthinkable. Warning labels on packs grew bolder, screaming, "Smoking kills." Anti-smoking ads, gritty and real, showed blackened lungs on TV, a far cry from the suave Camel ads of old. Smoking rates plummeted. By 1995, only a quarter of adults lit up, half the 1960s peak. This shift reshaped American life. Bars and coffee shops, once smoky havens, became places to breathe easy. Families ate at diners without ashtrays on tables. Health became a cultural obsession. Think jogging booms and granola bars, a legacy of saying no to tobacco's grip. Even fashion ditched the cigarette. Flannel and Doc Martens didn't need a Marlboro to look cool. But the change wasn't easy. For some, like the bar's old-timers, smoking was a piece of who they were, tied to 1950s sock hops or 1970s road trips. Quitting felt like losing a friend, even if that friend was poison. For those who lived through the 1990s, the memory of smoke-free air might feel like a victory, a moment when society chose life over habit. It's a testament to how far we've come from the days when doctors handed out cigarette prescriptions. The lesson here? We can change even when it's hard, when we decide what's worth fighting for. A family rummages through a dusty attic in 2025, the kids giggling as they unearth a 1950s magazine. There's a Camel ad inside, a smiling doctor, cigarette in hand, promising mild flavor. The parents pause, struck by how alien it feels, yet how familiar. That ad, yellowed and fragile, is a portal to an America where smoking was king, prescribed by trusted hands. It's a memory and a warning all in one. The 1950s, when doctors lit up in exam rooms, left a long shadow. Those years birthed a health crisis. Lung cancer rates soared, claiming millions by the time science caught up. But they also sparked a revolution. The Surgeon General's 1964 report, the bans, the lawsuits, they all trace back to that era's blind trust in tobacco. Today, smoking rates are at historic lows, under 12% of adults, thanks to lessons learned the hard way. Smoke-free laws guard our cafes and parks, a gift from decades of fighting. That time shaped more than health. It changed how we see authority. The 1950s taught us to trust doctors, admin, and brands without question. When cigarettes turned deadly, we learned to doubt, to dig for truth. That skepticism fueled civil rights, environmentalism, even how we pick our leaders now. It's in our music too. Think of protest songs or grunge's raw honesty, born from a world that stopped swallowing easy answers. For those who lived through the 1950s or after, the scent of tobacco might conjure diners, first kisses, or late-night talks. It's nostalgia for a simpler America, all chrome and optimism. But the attic ad tells another story, one of mistakes, resilience, and clarity. We're healthier now, wiser, because we faced the smoke and cleared it. The lesson lingers like a faint echo, question what shines too bright. History's charm is real, but its truths are what keep us free.